Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion approved. Commissioner Halberg, second.
Second.
Commissioner Best, second.
Commissioner Romans,
Aye.
Commissioner Bansky,
Aye.
Commissioner Peters,
Aye.
Commissioner Tyken,
Aye.
Commissioner Best,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallberg,
Aye.
and Chair Messina.
Aye.
Okay, passes 7-0.
All right, great. There are no public hearings, so other actions. We're going to do things just a little differently than what the agenda says in the order. We do have a couple of people attending tonight for number 6 on the agenda, which is the Mason Home Company variance 2021-12. And rather than make him sit through the other 3, go ahead, if there are no objections, and move that up to the front of the agenda and take that on first. It's not a public hearing, but they are with us tonight. So if we have questions for them, it gives them an opportunity to answer those questions as a courtesy to them since they're with us. If that's okay, if there are no objections.
I'm fine with that, Chair.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. So the first on the agenda is going to be the Mason Home Company variance 2021-12, Shoreline lot width and size, 914 East First Street. And I believe Justin is doing the presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, so this variance is to the shoreline lot size requirements. As you can see on this lot survey, there's 2 lots that were platted, 1800s. They're 66 feet wide by 140 feet deep. They're well above our minimum lot size standards for the R2 zoning district. The shoreline ordinance does require a greater size setbacks option in 1994 of that ordinance. And I can explain in a little bit here why these lots aren't grandfathered in as normally they would be when you change an ordinance. There's an aerial photograph of the site. You can see on one of the lots there's an existing house. Their lot is vacant. And aerial photographs over the years, there's been a few different things that have looked like occurred on this lot. In the back part of the lot in the 30s and 40s, it looked like there was a house. And then it looks like there was a large structure towards the southern half of the lot. And speaking with some of the area residents, it sounded like this may have been an area where they stored ice from Lake Isabel. Photograph looking to the south from First Street. You can see the curb here along First Street. The ground, this right-of-way area, street, and where the lot starts is kind of a ditch area. Its elevation is as low as 698 feet below sea level, and there's a storm drain or catch basin right here on the right side. From here, as you go south to the lot, back of the lot, it elevation goes up quite a bit. Where the lot meets the alley, it's about 694 feet, which is fairly high. That's the minimum finished floor elevation of a structure in this area would have to be at that elevation. Taken from the alley, looking to the north of the vacant lot. The existing house is just off to the right, and you can see First Street in the distance there. Two lots do meet all the current zoning requirements of city zoning code. The shoreline management area, as I mentioned, has some different requirements in its overlay areas. And the shoreline ordinance is meant to conserve natural environments while allowing for development in existing urban areas. while the overlay boundaries for different waterways are static, for all lakes, it's 1,000 feet distance from those lakes. For rivers, it's 300 feet from those rivers are the overlay districts where their regulations apply. It's the category of those waterways where the regulations differ. Rural areas with undeveloped lands are identified typically with natural or recreational lakes and rivers as traditional. And those along those requirement are lots that are much larger and have greater width requirements to keep those areas looking natural, but also to keep impact to those resources minimal, since they're in undeveloped areas without infrastructure of stormwater systems and septic or sewer systems. These categories are generally not found in cities that are developed along those waterways. Waterways in cities with existing development, by definition, are meant to be categorized as urban or general development. Staff has found that similar cities use these categories for their stretch of the Mississippi River and lakes that are in those cities that are developed around. Additionally, the DNR's draft Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan this neighborhood as river towns and crossings district, which is characterized by historic downtown areas and residential districts. States that the area must be managed in a manner that allows continued growth and redevelopment. This also appears in the city's critical area chapter of the 2040 comprehensive plan. Properties were platted prior to adoption of the Shoreline Management Ordinance. They would be grandfathered at the current size, but for the provision of the Shoreline Ordinance that states if two adjacent lots are ever jointly owned, they would have to be not allowed to be grandfathered. There's case law that found that neither greater than 66% of the lot requirement nor continued joint ownership may be compelled, allowing grandfathered lots as a result of joint ownership. That case law, the current size of those individual lots nearly meet the minimum of the enforcement of those lot sizes and lot width without a variance, but just not quite. This may be granted where due to special conditions and where literal enforcement of the provisions of the city code would result in practical difficulties. Staff report explores the conditions and difficulties along with checks of those findings, but principally staff believes that the special conditions include improperly classified water bodies requiring rural undeveloped lot standards in the developed urban environment. The applicant would encounter practical difficulties in developing the lot without a variance due to the lots being in common ownership and being platted urban lots required to meet undeveloped land requirements. Most of the area, the subject properties are within the flood fringe district. The city's floodplain ordinance and federal regulations allow construction within that designation as long as the floodplain regulations are met. Most notably, the structures must have a minimum finished floor elevation. The area would be 690 feet level, and they must be on fill at least 1 foot below that. Homes in the area
Yeah, froze on us there. Time here to
Yeah. It becomes unfrozen again here.
all right. If not, somebody might have to call him and let him know if he can't hear us.
Yeah, I will do so. Like Justin has left us here. I think I can maybe summarize a little bit here. I mean, we've got a variance report before us tonight, variance request from the Shoreline ordinance provisions here. There's two things that we look at for the variance request. We take a look at some of those items that must be necessary for you to grant a variance. We take a look at some of the precedent that we've used as well. In this situation, as Justin stated, the zoning ordinance meets the requirements. It's a situation in which the Shoreline ordinance does not, and the fact that these lots were combined affects that. We had two platted lots there back from 1855 that were joined together at one point. So the variance request here is for the Shoreline ordinance. As we've shared with you earlier today, we've had a couple of comments that have come in from residents in the adjoining area, from Ray Menard and from BJ Carl. In general, I think that their comments relate to stormwater on the site itself and concerns that they have related to how stormwater would be affected with the new development. As they pointed out, and as I think Justin learned from his visit to the site, that it's a lower area, and we've heard that during larger storm periods that is a natural low spot for drainage of the surrounding area, and so there is some concern of that. Take a look at the variance request itself. The variance is to the Shoreline ordinance. As part of our development requirements for any new construction of a home, we would have certain requirements for stormwater management that must be met with a building permit. Primarily with that is the relation that stormwater that is on the site cannot leave the site. And so that is something that they would look at and have to provide some analysis to ensure that we don't have more stormwater leaving the site with the development coming in there. So there may be some creativity on that. We also shared an email earlier today from the applicant himself, sharing some of his expertise and some of his background on the item itself. So I think I'll stand at this point here. Again, as the chair had pointed out, this is not officially a public hearing, although I do know that there's a couple of people in the audience, including, I think, the applicant, who may wish to address. So, Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, you may ask for any comments that are out there. We could take some additional comments if people want to comment at this point, and I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John, and Justin, wherever you are. Appreciate that. And looking at, just want to pull up the participant list here. We got, it looks like all three of our attendees are accounted for. If it's Edgar, BJ, and Ray are in there, if you want to speak, if you could just use the raise hand feature. And okay, Ray's got his hand raised. We'll go ahead and bring you into the meeting. Okay, and Ray, if you just unmute yourself, you should be good to go.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for a chance to speak. With all due respect, John, I think it's a little more complicated than you described, and I want to start by saying we're totally in favor of developing this area. We're part of that. We did it as well. The lots, I did send some documents regarding this, and the entire block, you need to understand, drains through this lot. So the alleyway is sloped from Washington and Franklin towards the center of the block, and the houses on 2nd Street all drain towards the alleyway, except for a little bit on the front of them, which drains towards 2nd Street. But the roofs and structures there, and there's parking lots, driveways, garages, etc., all drain towards the alley. Then the alley all drains towards this lot. And in a moderate rainstorm, there is literally a creek that flows through the lot. It's substantial. In a heavy rainfall, it's like a little river, and it goes down to the front of the lot. Justin mentioned the ditch at the front, and in that is a city storm sewer to collect that water. In a flood period, This is a very low storm sewer. It's like 6 feet below First Street. And First Street is below the floodplain, just to put that in context. The Mississippi River begins to flow back up through the storm sewer because this is the shortest route to the river, if you will. And it's right out front is where that storm sewer flows. And it comes straight up into the lot and begins to fill the lot. Because the house, BJ Carl's house, the house that is being remodeled right now, the basement of that, which includes furnaces and such, my garage are all in that floodplain. The city comes and plugs it with a balloon to keep the water from coming back up and filling the lot. That lot was filled with water just 2 years ago. And what happens when that occurs then is that it only takes a moderate rain and the lot becomes a floodplain. It fills with water quickly. As I described, there's a whole river flowing here. And then the city comes down and pumps the water out of the lot and over the top and into the river. So the city has participated in helping to manage the situation. It is a city, you could argue, city-created situation that allowed all of the building permits on the houses on 2nd Street, which are all recent. Here's 2 more coming now. That's going to create more runoff. And the lot, the alley is flowing towards the lot, not towards the street. And the city has acknowledged that there is an issue with significant water flow by putting a storm sewer right in the lot. If there is a house added in the center of that lot, it's going to create 2 rivers, one on each side of the house. One will take out my retaining wall, which was pictured in one of those pictures. I have the geodesic dome, you can see it from the ceiling, from the satellite imagery or the plane flyovers, whatever that is. And the other will take out the existing garage because it'll flow straight through that. That's a very old garage. I guess it's remaining because it's filled with asbestos. So it's going to flow straight down on each side of that house, and 2 rivers have as much of a place to go because the ponding basin will be filled. And so we're concerned about the water management in this. And I'm not sure what it means that you can't let your water flow across somebody else's lot. It's kind of irrelevant when you've got all the other lots flowing through this, including water off of my house as well. It is the stream, the flowage for this whole block. Any questions on that?
All right, commissioners, any questions? I do have one for Justin. Justin, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
So on the recommendation under the conditions, condition number 3, where it says all provisions of the zoning, shoreline management, and floodplain ordinances must be addressed, including but not limited to setbacks, design, drainage, and elevation requirements. Would that condition match their concerns and would that address those concerns prior to final approval?
Sure. I mean, they would have to have a grading and drainage control plan that would be engineered and reviewed by our city engineers staff to make sure that any alteration of the site wouldn't create any additional issues, and hopefully it would reduce some of the existing drainage issues that could better be handled.
That would have to be in place prior to any kind of building.
Yes,
Correct.
That's correct.
If that condition is made. Okay. I just want to get clarification on that. Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions, comments? If not, I see that PJ has the hand raised. Go ahead and there we go. All right, and if you could just go ahead and unmute yourself and you'll be with us. There we go.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
Appreciate it. Let's see if I can get my camera on.
Yeah, can you do me a real quick favor and then just give us your address if you would?
It's 102 Washington Street.
102 Washington Street. Okay, thank
Yep,
you.
So I'm on the corner. Yeah, I think Ray did a really good job of talking about the concern with the runoff when you're adding more water flow too because of surface area. In addition, the ponding concern would be that there'd be additional runoff and it would fill quicker. So I think I appreciate Ray, explaining that. And that's just part of my concern. I also do have a bit of a concern with the property line as it stands drawn. One of the, I know for a fact that the agreed upon property line ran right directly from the edges of both of the sheds straight through to that. On the plan, you can see, I think he even put a retaining wall on there. And that was the agreed upon property line and has been probably since the 1930s. Originally before even Bill and Lorraine Racky built the house and then moved it back. So I'm looking into also how to dispute that. And I do have gathering information and old photos and different things to show that property line is over slightly. And so I don't know if that's going to make a difference with the variance or not, but I just wanted to bring that up. But the biggest concern we have is the fact that, we give this extra zoning, we allow for this splitting of these two levels, and the house gets built. And he, basically, this is a builder who flips houses. He'll sell it, and then the problem lies with the new owners. And the concern is we want to make sure that the floodplain and zone gets resolved before there's any approval in building. That's what I wanted to say, and I appreciate giving me the time to talk. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, and Mark's got his hand raised as well. Bring Mark in. And Mark, once you unmute yourself, you just give us your name and your address.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Perfect. Mark Mason here, owner of Mason Home Company. I own the lot at 914. First, thank you guys all for hearing this variance request tonight. I really appreciate it. Been working with Justin on the variance. As you guys have kind of heard, the variance I think is not the issue here. The issue of the neighbors is storm drainage, which, as Ray pointed out, he'd like to see the development and is concerned about the drainage. All I can offer is you guys have seen kind of our plans, my past experience working with, I was an engineer, was a stormwater engineer. I've got a lot of good friends that will be helping with these plans. That is a condition that needs to be set with this variance approval. And I think the ending result will be better, especially if Mr. Menard would let us fill a little bit onto his lot. We could drastically limit the size of the retaining wall that he needs, put in better rock swales, more of a functional swale instead of a random river or stream running across the lot. When we can control the drainage, it will function much better than it is currently. And if we can't do that, then the building permit wouldn't get approved. And we will work collaboratively with the city engineers to make sure all that happens. And if you guys have any questions for me on anything, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for any of our attendees? No? All right. I want to thank Mark and BJ and Ray for being here tonight. And I want to thank Ray for his presentation, for his documents that really help put things in perspective as far as his view on it. So commissioners, I'll open it up for any other questions, comments. Commissioner Matzke?
Is this in the historical zone of the city? Do they have any conditions that they have to meet of the historical zones?
This is not in the historic district or the original Hastings Design Standards area. So there's no requirements by the city.
And then I guess I'm looking at the aerial photo of this and the drainage of this, and it does look like most of the water is running through at least the 3/4 of that city block is running through there already. So it's not like we're doing anything or adding any additional drainage. But we will be blocking that area up, it looks like, by building a home there. So if it can be addressed and the designer can come up with some sort of plan that would efficiently move the water through there, I don't see this as a problem, but it does look like 3/4 of that block does through that one parcel. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll just chime in here real quick while I have the thought in my head. This is really kind of a two-pronged deal. The variance that we're undertaking is, can the lot be split? And that's referenced the ordinance itself. The conditions, they have to meet those certain conditions before there's a final approval.
Right.
So that's the double check. And this is kind of one of those classic situations where if you deny the variance, we never make it to the next step to see what the solutions could be. So we don't have a discussion on the solutions, and then not us, but I mean as far as the city and the builder and the neighbors. So in order to get to that next step, we have to move forward, at some point. So I'm supporting the variance only because I think that some of those drainage issues and the retaining wall, and I think she had mentioned the survey issues. Those are things that are outside of the purview of what we do, of what we can control and can't control. We're just undertaking the variance portion of it and the ordinance part of it. And so I think that there's ample opportunity for the builder, or actually the lot owner as well, and the neighbors to work together and coming up with a better drainage solution than what we have today. And it sounds like he has experience with that. So that's my take on it, is to recommend approval of the variance to the city council, move it forward, and let them move forward with putting some of those solutions into place. So that's my 2 cents on that. Commissioner Teichen, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Messina. Great comments. Just a couple housekeeping items. On one of the drawings, it shows a well. Is that still in place, and is that going to get taken care of?
Did see that there's a hand pump well out there. I'm not sure if it's functioning one or not. Those are things that we do look at when there's development. If it is a functioning one, they generally want those capped. So there's not a.
Oh, I guess my question, I'll be direct about it then, is do we need to put something in there to make sure that gets taken care of, or is that just part of the whole process of going through the build, that it'll get taken care of?
It's up to you. I can make extra sure that we are cognizant of that. Luckily it's on the surveys that we have on the property, so it will be reviewed.
And then explain to me, so the finished floor height has to be, would you say 694 feet above? Or above
That's
sea level?
correct. Yeah, the base flood elevation out there is 693 feet, and the finished floor elevation be 1 foot above that.
And is that the highest seen water in that area, or where do we come up with that figure?
It's just the noted elevation on the FEMA flood maps.
Okay.
I believe it may relate to a 100-year flood.
And the houses in that area, they're at that similar height, or are they varying based on when they're built?
The new ones are probably at that height. I believe Mr. Menard told me that he built his 2 feet higher than he was required to in the early 80s. I'm not sure if in the early 80s it was a different elevation, but
okay,
that's just the minimum today.
Yeah, and I agree with Chair Messina. I think it seems supportable, and the floodwaters are kind of outside of the variance. So I'll let the engineers and figure that out to make sure that we don't build a houseboat, right? Locked house if it ever floods enough. So, thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Tyken. Yeah, I guess for Commissioner Best and Tyken, kind of when I do variances, I look at three things. I'm pretty consistent on that. I look at the variance review in three ways. Does it fit? A, makes sense. And it does. The variance review spells that out in very good form, by the way. Nice staff, good staff report, Justin. Thank you. The second thing I look at is, does it create a hardship either for the applicant or anybody else? And actually, this may be an opportunity to take away hardship, which seems to be the drainage in that area. And I think that qualified to work with the neighbors on that. And then the third thing is precedence. Does it set a precedence going forward that, puts either the city or other residents in a precarious position? And this one actually doesn't. It actually fixes something. So it's actually a positive precedence on that. But I really implore the neighbors, the resident, the builder, everybody to work together in coming up with a solution, since the common problem is the drainage. I think it's a great opportunity for people to work together and come up with a solution. And I think the only way that we can let that process continue is by moving the variance up to City Council for approval, the recommendation for approval. Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Alberg, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Menard had his hand raised again. I don't know if we wanted to bring him back in. You're on mute now.
Let's go ahead and bring him back in. John? All right. Mr. Menard, you're in. Just need to unmute and then we can hear you.
You hear me now?
I can. Go ahead.
Just very briefly, I'm looking forward to working with Mr. Mason to see what can be done. Not a problem there. I just want to note that in Justin's presentation, the document, it said if there was a dispute over property lines, you couldn't allow a variance, and that was in essence what BJ was saying. So I don't know if that applies or not, but I just wanted to mention it. That's all.
John, Justin, can you respond to that?
Yeah, well, I can say that I don't recall saying if there's a dispute on property lines, a variance can't be approved. Property line disputes are civil matters between property owners. The city doesn't have any ability to grant any type of a finding on who owns what property. I might have stated something that was that sounded similar to that, but I can't.
It's in 9B is where it says that. Again, not trying to throw a wrench in the gears here.
Did you say 9B?
9B or D? I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed that too.
B as in boy.
B as in boy. Okay. Go ahead and cite it for me, what you're looking at.
9B states that the practical difficulty is caused by provisions of this chapter and not been created by any persons presented or formally having interest in the parcel of land.
Oh, okay.
The practical difficulty was created by the miscategorization of water bodies in the Shoreline ordinance. It wasn't the current property owner that did something to the property to have it be substandard ordinance.
Okay.
For that clarification.
And thank you. Appreciate that. Nurse? Oh, Dan? Yep, go ahead. You're on mute.
Justin, I guess it may be not quite the same question. I understand 9B is different than what Mr. Menard asked, but even though it might be a civil matter between those parties, this question of a lot line or potentially adverse possession there, does the potential of changing the dimensions of the lot or to be created lot impact on setbacks? Does any of that affect the potential for a variance?
Well, the lot affected by that is the lot with the existing house on it, which she shares a border with. The survey shows that her shed is over the property line, maybe a half a foot or so. And I think she's contending that she owns that property. So if she were able to win some litigation and were granted a sliver of that property, it would make that lot smaller, but that would be occurring in the future after this determination. So the lot would be grandfathered in because that happened after the fact, possibly. All we're doing is making a variance for the properties as they are now.
So there's nothing on file right now. There's not a dispute or anything on file currently. is what we're saying.
Correct, and that is for the property that's already developed, so it wouldn't affect any of the constructing a house on this lot to the west.
Okay, yeah, and ideally that would be the homeowners that would want to work that out, or excuse me, the landowners, the lot owners that would want to work that out in the future. Dan, go ahead.
Can you humor me, Justin? Could you share screen and throw up aerial or a map or something just so I can understand which lot is which and where there's a property line and a garage? And
see if I can zoom in here. All right, so the property line under dispute from BJ would be this eastern orange line. The survey that owns this lot 1, and this survey is showing that her shed is slightly over the property line, and she's contending that there was an agreement that the property line ran, to the west a little bit of the official platted property line for whatever reason.
thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay, yeah, that clarifies it. So it's actually on the existing property, not on the new lot. Yeah, okay.
Gonna say.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything there for a second. I'm sorry.
No, thanks, Justin. That was a good point he made, just to clarify which side of this lot was in dispute. So even if she goes ahead and disputes that in a civil litigation, it's not really going to affect the other lot itself. That's in the other lot. So, okay, that makes sense. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romans?
Just a quick thing. I'd like to just reiterate what kind of you said there. I think it's the stormwater seems like it could be an issue, but it's outside of our purview here. I don't want to get too far away from that. The variance makes sense to me. It follows all the outlines here. So I'm generally supportive of going forward with that variance. And I would like to add on to Commissioner Tyken's point on the well there. I'd be supportive of adding a condition in there that well gets sealed to MDH standards, just to throw it in there to make sure moving forward, that's probably a good practice to have. So other than that, supportive of the variance. And I think it's a great opportunity to work together as a community in there for them to solve some of those problems of the stormwater moving forward. So I think that's all I had. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner Romans. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Commissioner Albert?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the Mason Home Company variance number 2021-12 shoreline lot size and width with the conditions and the added condition of the closure and capping of the well.
We have a motion on, we have a motion on the floor to approve by Commissioner Hallberg, and that's modifying the conditions to add the capping and sealing of the well. Commissioners, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Romans. Any further discussion? John?
Commissioner Hallberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Best? Commissioner Tyken? Chair Messina?
Aye.
Commissioner Peters?
Aye.
Commissioner Matsky?
Aye.
And Commissioner Romans. And I will note that that passes 7-0, the recommendation for approval with the added condition. That will be forwarded to the City Council for final action on April 5th.
John. Okay. Next on the agenda is TC Land LLC final plat, or correction. Let's go back one more time here. Simic Property Group final plat 2021-10. Villas at Pleasant, 32 Villa Homes, Northridge and Pleasant. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen here and show the property that we're looking at tonight. You all see that? The map? Okay, thumbs up. Simic Property Group, you've looked at this before last fall when we had the rezoning and the preliminary plat and final plat application for this development. The development looks like it does today, which is a 32 lot subdivision of villa homes, which are detached single family homes within an association. So the layout you're looking at today is unchanged from last fall, the approval. What has changed is how the project is going to be constructed. When the project was originally brought forward to you, it was a preliminary plat for the entire subdivision, and then a phase of 2, which the first phase would take place down here, second phase at a later time. So the final plat approval at that time was only granted for half of the development. Since that time, Simic Property Group has decided to do everything at once. That has necessitated a new final plat application, which would encompass the entire subdivision. So what we're looking at here is consistency from the preliminary plat to what's being shown on the final plat. When we take a look at, do it together, preliminary plat is here, final plat is here. We have gone through a review to ensure that that is consistent, and it is. The only change really is this outlot B, which was part of the preliminary plat, had a extension, a 15-foot wide extension behind these lots. Difference now is these lots go all the way to Northridge Drive, makes these lots a little bit larger, and this strip back here really served no purpose. So we're certainly supportive of that. We also have in here your standard requirements that we have in the final plat, including the payment of park dedication fees, sewer interceptor fees, as well as signature of agreements for the development of the property. And so we have those conditions added in. So taking a look again on a preliminary plat, what we're looking at is the how the property is going to develop. We do really the heavy lifting at the time of preliminary plat. We look at the grading review, where streets are going, grading, stormwater, utilities, all that portion. So we do the heavy lifting during the preliminary plat. When the final plat comes along, what we're looking for is this consistent, and it is consistent with the final plat, and we are recommending approval of it. And so I could stand for any questions that you may have on this. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Commissioners, once I get the full screen back up here. Okay, commissioners, any comments? And just some background for Commissioner Best and Commissioner Tyken. We took this up in the fall of last year, so we've already done all of the plat work and the review and all of that. So this is basically allowing them to build the whole thing now at once versus in 2 phases. I'm assuming because demand is there. So that's where we are on that. Mr. Tyken, go ahead.
My only question is, all the outlots, who owns those when this is done?
The outlots would be owned by a homeowners association. And
Okay.
so the development agreement would have that as a requirement, and then we would have a requirement that homeowners association documents be drafted to maintain the ownership of that.
All the taxes and whatnot will be paid by the HOA.
Correct.
Okay, that's really the only question I had. Thank you, Chair.
Try that again. Thanks, Commissioner Taken. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any other? If there are no other discussion, I'll go ahead and take a motion.
I'll make the
Commissioner
motion.
Maskey.
I'll
Commissioner
make the
Maskey?
motion. I'll make the motion to approve the final plat.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Hallberg. Any other further discussion? John, if you can call the roll.
Will do. Commissioner Romans? Commissioner Peters?
Aye.
Commissioner Hallberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Tyken?
Aye.
Commissioner Matsky?
Aye.
Commissioner Best?
Aye.
And Chair Messina.
Aye.
I will note that that passes on a 7-0 vote for recommendation of approval, and that will be forwarded to the City Council on April 5th for final action.
Thank you, John. All right, next on the agenda, TC Land LLC. This is the final plat for 2021-04 Heritage Ridge, second edition, 31 lots at General Sieben Drive in Fallbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sounds
Put
good.
my screen back on here. A similar type of action tonight as we had for the last one. This is for the 40-acre development that's located off General Sieben Drive and Fallbrook Drive. This is the total extent of what would be the second edition. You can see the first edition Fallbrook Drive of 9 lots extended over here. Total development is 116 lots, half of them being villa home lots, half of those being traditional single-family lots. When you take a look at the preliminary plat, which is shown here, showing the entire 116, the area in red shows what's being constructed as part of the second edition, and that's shown here in the final plat. So we will have some street extensions. Fallbrook Drive will be extended further to the west with a temporary cul-de-sac at this location. And High Point Drive will be extended north with a temporary cul-de-sac here. Actually, Ridge Point, sorry, got my streets. And Ridge Point Court will be constructed off to the east here. There will be a stub street for what's termed Westview Drive here, albeit as we know in town, we already have one of those. So that would be West Point Drive. We have that as a condition as part of the approval on it. So that's what would be constructed as part of this phase. Another important part of this is Outlot C, which is the main stormwater basin for the development. That would also be done as part of this phase of development. We've had our city engineers working with the developers' engineers to look at stormwater patterns. With the preliminary plat, there is a method in which all of the stormwater can be held on site, and we're reviewing that. And one of the things the developer is seeking, which is well outside of the bounds of the final plat discussion for Planning Commission, but more it's kind of a tidbit, is there might be some potential drainage worked out with St. Elizabeth and Seton Church to the north, assuming they come to agreement on an easement. But there is methodology for them to have their stormwater on the site and meet our requirements. So we're working through that. Again, with the final plat, we're looking for consistency with the preliminary plat. What we show here is consistency. We would have cash in lieu for park dedication. We'd have the requirement that the development agreement and homeowners association documents be recorded. Also have a provision that lots that are built within the subdivision are notified of the potential negative attributes of the mining operation to the south. So all of those are included within the conditions for approval. I believe the developer is also in the audience tonight. If you have any questions for him, and I can stand for any questions at this time as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Commissioners, any comments, questions? If you're thinking of some, I'll just start out by saying I want to, thank the Simek Property Group and Heritage Ridge Second Edition developer. It's nice to see development and see the demand. And I mean, they look really nice. If you haven't had a chance to visit the area, I highly recommend it. So thank you for, coming to Hastings. So it's nice to see. Other questions, comments? Nothing's changed. So take a motion if not. Commissioner Hopper.
I'll make the motion to approve Heritage Ridge Second Edition Final Plat 2021-4 TC Land.
All right, Commissioner Hallberg, motion to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Tyken on a second. Any further discussion? John, go ahead and call the roll.
All right, Chair Messina. Commissioner Best.
Aye.
Commissioner Matsky. Well, Commissioner Matsky, you're on mute.
Aye.
Commissioner Tyken. Commissioner Hallberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Peters.
Aye.
And Commissioner Romans.
Aye.
I will note that that recommendation for approval passes on a 7-0 vote, and that will be forwarded to the City Council on April 5th for final action. Thanks.
All right, thanks, John. And next on the agenda, Custom Sawdust LLC, Site Plan 2021-11, construction of a new building at 525 East 31st Street. And you are back on. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I apologize for losing internet connectivity earlier. Hopefully I'll be fine for the rest of the meeting. This is the property that's proposed for purchase from the city of Hastings by the applicant to construct a building on. It's just east of the Hastings bus garage. Photograph taken from, you can see it's a pretty level site, totally vacant. The city had formerly had agricultural lease on these properties, but has put it to natural plantings in the last few years. The site plan for the proposal, as you can see, it's got nearly a 5,000 square foot metal building, which is mostly a shop for semi-storage, a small office. The site also includes a large maneuvering area for semis to pull in and presumably back up into the building. And two entrances onto the street. The elevations of the proposed building. The requirements would normally require at least 25% class 1 material in the front. The applicants are proposing to have a stone veneer on the lower half of the building, as shown on the elevation, which would wrap around to the sides. Mostly class 2 in the front of the building, and areas not highly visible from adjacent streets would be allowed to have a class. Proposing to have the balance of the building besides the stone to be a class 2 material. It's going to be a steel board and batten material with non-visible retainers, similar to a past couple projects in the industrial park. Simply storage and what the other one was that they had mentioned. The lumber, I believe, building. The proposal meets the zoning requirements. The use of the site is consistent with the zoning and the comprehensive plan guiding the property as industrial, and they meet the parking requirements based on the size of the structure and the use of the building as industrial. That I can stand for any questions. The applicant is also in attendance if there's any questions for him.
Thank you, Justin.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, commissioners, any questions? I do see that John has joined us. He's in the audience. So if we have any questions for him, or Jerry, I'm sorry. While you're thinking of those, just pretty straightforward. It fits. You know, simply put, it fits. You know, it's exactly what we're looking for that area. So.
My only question is there any additional thoughts on that site that they would be looking at? They've got quite a bit of front area there that they're using. Is there any additional that they're looking at for the future plans for this lot? I mean, it fits, it works, and as proposed, and it's great. I want to see it, but it just, what are their thoughts for the future besides this?
Yeah, I believe Jerry Grochon is in attendance, would be best to answer that question.
And it looks like he is in with us now.
Hello.
Jerry, go ahead.
Yep, you can hear me? Okay. I guess at this point, I would be interested in the joining this to the east for future reference, and or the one to the north. But right now, it's just kind of a bit more for me to bite off at this time. So I'd probably just hold it here for now.
That be for the same story you're talking about?
Same business.
Just expansion?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, any other questions for Jerry or applicant? No. If none, I'll go ahead and accept a motion. I'll go ahead and kick this one off then. I'll make a motion to approve site plan. Building for custom sawdust 2021-11 at 525 31st Street East.
I'll second.
Commissioner Roman, second. Okay. And any further discussion?
Just a comment. I love the fact that all of these buildings are, you know, a lot same designs, and there's gonna be a lot of uniformity out there, but good looking builds that all, like you said, Mr. Chair, all blend into the area. I think it's a great addition.
Very similar to the storage ones.
Yep.
That are going up. So yeah, very nice. Any other further discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Will do. Commissioner Hallberg.
Aye.
Chair Messina.
Aye.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
Commissioner Teichen.
Aye.
Commissioner Peters.
Aye.
Commissioner Romans.
Aye.
And Commissioner Matzke.
Aye.
I will note that the recommendation for approval passes on a 7-0 vote, and that'll be heard at the April 5th council meeting for final action.
All right, thanks, John. And I just want to say thank you to all of our attendees tonight. Sometimes I forget to do that on the previous one. So I just want to thank all our attendees for being here tonight. They're all logged out already, but if they ever watch this back, we want to know, thank you for taking your time out for being here with us tonight. So other business, John.
Other business, well, update on a few items that passed through Planning Commission at the last meeting. 2 items we reviewed. One of them was heard by the City Council and approved at the last meeting, and that was the final plat for Vermilion Acres senior housing development. And the item missing that we reviewed at the last meeting pertained to South Oaks 4th edition. The applicant requested a continuance of that item. It is anticipated that will be heard by the council at their April 19th meeting. So not the upcoming meeting, but the one after that. I don't have much more to report on that other than we're looking at engineering issues, trying to get a better handle so we can be better prepared for the council meeting coming up on the 19th at this point. As far as our actions go, I already have one item in the queue for our next meeting, which would be April 12th. We've got 3 weeks between our meeting with the 5th Monday this month. So I do have a final plat application in for Wallen 19th edition, and I believe that is the last edition for Wallen. We've been working on that development now for 20 years, and we're finally down to the last few lots. So we'll be bringing that forward to you and whatever else might be coming in. I think I've shared with a few of you here, it's been a busy spring as far as new developments that we've reviewed, and also with discussions that we've had with other folks that are looking at development, residential development, industrial development, et cetera. So I hope to have more to come on that one, and appreciate your time again in your efforts in reviewing things tonight. That's all I had.
All right, thanks, John. Anyone got any other business? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Commissioner Maskey?
Taken, yeah.
Commissioner, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Tyken. Sorry, you guys have same voices. Literally identical. So you raise your hand, then I'll be able to see it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Best. All right. John?
I'll go through the charts. Commissioner Romans?
Aye.
Commissioner Peters?
Aye.
Commissioner Hallberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Tyken? Commissioner Matsky?
Aye.
Commissioner Best?
Aye.
And Chair Messina.
Aye.